Now we have the Retching Toad Eatery, which doesn't that sound delicious? The stuff they serve there. You can see from today's specials, we have shrunken head soup, brain loaf, eyeball casserole, rat fondue, ghost souffle, and earwax pie. Yum! Anyway, this is the chipboard I'm going to use for this house, and I want to show you some architectural things that I did with this. So here you can see I've covered the bottom here below the roof line with the brick, and then I've done this roof part here with the roofing tiles. Then I've covered the center here with brick, and then again the roof, and then this part of the roof is on chipboard, so it does pop out a little bit. And then on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add, let me see here if I can find it. I'm going to add these pieces that are made from the window chipboard, as you can see here. So I'll be putting this here, and what I've done is I've taken from the spooky windows, I've taken one of the windows and put it on top after covering this with paper from the kit. And then to get the roof line here, I've just taken some of the roof tiles, put them on chipboard, and then glued them to the top here, and I just made them a little bit longer than this edge. And then this whole thing will be popped up like this. So that will give this some architectural interest. And then I'm going to do the same thing here on the top. You can see I've got the roof line done again, and I've put the window on the top, and it goes with that there. And then I will do a separate roof piece here that will be popped up for just this area here, because this is like another roof line. So that way it will look like there's a roof in the back, and then there's this roof in the front. And of course the door will go here, and then I'll add a bunch of other things to it. And then in the back, I've gone ahead and covered it with some paper from the digital kit, and that will be my starting point for building the inside of the eatery. So what I have here is a standalone piece to go with the eatery. So I thought it would be nice to show an example of how you could add other things to go with the houses. And I thought the eatery was a good one because we could have a table sitting outside where you would eat outside. And you can see we have two people here, a skeleton, and you can tell by her hair that she's been to Griselda's to get her hair done. And then, of course, you see another image over here, which is from another one of the collage sheets, a skeleton guy. And I'm guessing this is their first date. And on the table, you see a chicken, which is today's roadkill. It's the chicken that crossed the road. And then, you've got glasses of wine, a wine bottle, and you've got some candles. And let me turn this around. You see you have brain loaf, which is one of the specials of the day. And then you've got some pickled eyeballs. And she's sitting on a bale of hay, and of course he's standing. She's a lot taller than he is, so he's standing on a barrel, and the same barrel that I used for the tavern. And then of course it's all sitting on this wood table. And then I've used from the collage sheets, or from the digital image sets, I've used one of the facades as like a stone floor. And then you see we've got an umbrella here with a bead at the top of it. And the umbrella, I have a pattern for you. I'm not going to go into detail about how I did the umbrella because I have a huge digital, not huge, but I have a video on YouTube that already explains it all and goes into all the detail, and I have a bunch of patterns too, but I've actually sized one just to fit this particular umbrella. So to make it easy for you, you can just download that one, and if you want to make an umbrella that's the size of this table. So let me talk about some of the little details, how I did some of the things inside this. And I don't know if I can do this or not and show you. The table is just this unfinished wood table. And I ended up cutting it down some because it was just a little too high. The scale of it was a little too high. And this wood is really easy to cut. So, I cut about this much off of the legs of the table. And then I stained it with the vintage photo distress ink. I just rubbed it all over the table, and you know, I let it look kind of rustic, and I wasn't trying to be really perfect about doing it. So that's the table. And then the brain, I'm going to just set this right here. I know you can't see into it when I don't hold it. The brain is just these little erasers. They're just little colored erasers that come in a, you know, I don't know how many to a set. And I painted it with acrylic paint first with the with brown, so that I would get dark colors in all the little crevices between the lobes. And then I rubbed a pink paint on top of that with my finger, because I didn't want the paint to get in all of the crevices. And then finally, I just drizzled a little bit of alcohol ink on top of that for the red. So I kind of get this bloody looking brain. And I didn't worry, even though it's a rubber being an eraser, I didn't worry about using the acrylic paints, because I figured you're not going to be handling it. It's just part of the scene. And then the wine bottles, they come like this. They already had a label on them, but I got the label off and added one of the Dracula's Reserve labels that come on the tavern collage sheet. And then the eyeballs here are just in a little bowl. It's just a little wooden bowl that I painted. And then to do the umbrella, what I did is I put it on a wooden skewer. And then I used this little rondelle, or you could use a bead or anything you want that would fit over the end of your skewer. But the point of this is to give you more surface to glue the umbrella in place, rather than just trying to glue it to the skewer. So I ran the skewer up through the top of the umbrella and then put the bead on top of that, and then put a lot of glue here and let that dry. And then at the very bottom of the table, you can see I've got this little wooden piece, if you can see inside there. I've got this little wooden piece that's got a hole in it, and then the skewer goes down through that, and then I glued it to the floor. So that's how I've got the umbrella in place. And of course I put a hole, just punched a hole in the center of the table so that the skewer could go through that. Now the hairdo, our lovely hairdo here on our skeleton with the cat eyes, which that's what those are, little cat eye stickers for the eyes. The hairdo, the snake hairdo, I did with clay, and it's really easy. So I started with the skeleton, you know, with the raw head, and I just took some paper clay. This is this creative paper clay. And then I just pinched off bits of it and just rolled it. You know, that's all there is to it. And just get it to the thickness that you want in pieces like this. And then before trying to attach it, I kind of made a mashed end of it like this. And then I applied a little bit of E6000 just to a small area. And then I glued this in place, and I glued it in place wet. And then I just slowly but surely, I'd let it dry a little bit so it won't fall off. And I just kept adding more and more E6000 in the open areas, and adding more and more of these little rolled pieces of clay. And all of it's done while it's wet. And then when I finished attaching it, before the clay was completely dry, and with little pieces like that, it dries pretty quick, I just kind of bent them so they were like snake-like. And then I just covered the whole head, everywhere, all over the skull. I covered it with these little wiggly things. Let that dry. And then once everything was dry, I came in and painted it all this bright green. And to get the little eyes on the snake, I just came in with a toothpick that I dipped in black ink or black paint, and then just touched for the little bitty eyes. And so that'll make your snake head hairdo. And for the candles, I took one of these bottles, these little amber bottles, and I put a birthday candle, black birthday candle in, and I glued it to the table, and I just I lit the candle and let it melt all over the place. And once it was completely melted down, I needed a little bit more wax than what was there. So I put in another candle and let it melt down to about this far. And then I left it that way. So you've got this melted wax, melted candles all over the table. And I'll turn this. This side you can really see, there's a good one. You can see I've got all this melted wax around the amber bottle. And then you've got the second birthday candle is still there. So that's how I did that. Before I attach this to the inside of the eatery, I just wanted to show it to you. You know, I've been using a lot of the match boxes, those little narrow match boxes, to make shelves. Well, they come in a box, and so what I've done is use that box to make a table, the lid of that box. So I covered it with some paper from the Tim Holtz collection, and then the freebie collage sheet with the wood trim, I've wrapped that around there, and I picked this one because it was the closest color to the table. And then this table is in the collage sheet. So I have glued it to the front, what will be the front, and then I printed it again and I glued it to the back. But you'll notice, since this is going to go against the wall, you are not going to see this side of it, and I want you to see the wood part of it. So I've glued that to that side, and that's going to make my table, and I'm going to glue it to the wall. Now it doesn't need a whole lot of support because it's going to be supported by the wall itself. And then I wanted to show you the zombie that's going to be the person, the cook in the kitchen. And here's my zombie. Now, instead of an apron like you saw me use with the last two pieces, I took a piece of cheesecloth, and I think I doubled or tripled it thick, and I sprinkled some red pepper alcohol ink on it for blood. And then I've done the same trick, of course, with the skeleton legs and the hole for the finger puppet, the zombie finger puppet. Glued that in there. And then I glued this little axe. This comes in a set of 3 different ones, and I'm going to use the other ones in another piece. And I glued that, and then I just wrapped it around them and tied it with a piece of, just a little piece of twine to keep that in place. So that's going to be the cook for the kitchen. So here is the complete Retching Toad eatery with the structure as well as the standalone piece here. So let's review the front of the eatery. And I'll tilt this for you so you can see. Okay, starting from the right, we have the tree, and then I have a door here. And what I've done is I've cut out the insides of well, they're on the collage sheet, they're white, but I removed those. And if you can come in close, what's behind is a transparency, and I'll show you that collage sheet. I'm going to set this down for a minute. And this is the collage sheet, and it's printed on transparency. And this little section here was a bunch of spider webs. So I cut that out and glued that behind the door. And then, to have a light background so that you would see it, I used cheesecloth, of course, which you can find at your grocery store. And if you look in close here, and I thought it kind of also looked like curtains, and I'm going to use it again, actually as curtains. But if you look really close in there, you can kind of see the cheesecloth behind the, I don't know if you can see it, the fineness of it on the camera, but you will probably be able to see it in the photos that I take. You'll see the cheesecloth is behind the transparency. So it's the door, the transparency, then the cheesecloth, and then that's glued on top. Then we have the sign here, and I've used another little piece of that chipboard set that I showed you. And now you can see that second roof line that's on top of this. And if we come up here, I have used another little fence, and that's how it comes. It looks exactly like that. I just painted it and then rubbed it with some Gilder's paste, and it just looks like that. So I painted it brown and then copper Gilder's paste. Then you can see the windows in place, and then these are a little cute. I've got them on the top and the bottom, but they're little dollhouse shutters. And I use the Vintage Photo Distress Stain to color them, but otherwise, you know, they're just a wood color. And then I've used a little poison cameo, so customers be forewarned. This place is poison. And then down here you have roadkill served fresh daily, and that's popped out. And then I have one of the spooky trees where it's tucked in there, and then I've got the crows on that. And then let's take a look at the back. So here's the back side, the kitchen. And you can, of course, see the back side of the tree. I've got a little bucket of chicken, the roadkill, hanging there on the back side of the tree. Then up here you can see I have one of the pots from the collage sheet, and there's a frog there. I thought, well, it's a retching toad, I should have a frog. Maybe the frog, I don't know, spits in the pot. Then I have salted worms, and then I've got some worms coming out here. And they're just clay. Remember how I showed you to just roll up that clay to make the snake head, the snake hair for the skeleton. Same thing, I just used some of those and stuck them inside this bead. It's got a really big hole. And then I've got another thing from the collage sheet. And if we come up here, here's the chandelier from the collage sheet. And then I've got some of these zombie beads hanging off of just some twine, and also some just other little threads and things, and tied up and hanging on the back of this thing. So I thought that was kind of cute. And then of course I've got the Matchbox chests or Matchbox little shelves here. And then a little bottles covered with the with some little labels from Collage Sheet. And then I have a little skeleton stuck in there, candlesticks from the Collage Sheet. And then of course we got our zombie guy down here. And when we were filming the last segment, my husband saw the axe there and said, "You need blood on that." So I added blood to it. I thought it was a good idea. And then we got another little bucket. These buckets come in a set, the 2 buckets, and I got a brain inside that. More eyeballs. Those are just clay. Roll them in a ball, paint them. That's all they are. And then pieces from the Collage Sheet. And then back here we've got a little pickled eyeballs. And this little round bead I thought kind of looked like a pickle jar. It's like a barrel looking bead. And then here's the table that I showed you earlier how I put it together. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the fireplace mantle. Now that fireplace is on the Collage Sheet. Pull this over here. So you got a couple options with this. You know, you could just glue it to it. You could just pop it up a little bit. But to give me more space so that this would have a better chance of standing up, I added, I'm going to turn this around here, I just added a piece of chipboard which was the length, of the fireplace. And then however deep you want it to be to give you whatever mantle size you want. And then of course you've got places to stick things onto. And then if you look at the side, then I also just cut a piece of chipboard to go inside here. And I did that on both sides. And so that popped it up and that gave me my mantle and that gave me something for this to set up, to make the whole thing set up. Now we have Ghoul and Sons Chemists. And this piece is made by using this house, and I cut off the chimney and then using this piece up here to add additional space and architecture to the facade. Now I have used brick from the digital set and roofs from the digital set, and you'll notice that this is popped out in the front just like I did on the very first piece. It's glued in the back, got some foam core in here to keep this, foam core, double stick tape in here to keep this popped up. And then up here I have added the brick all over here. And then from the old Windows Collage Sheet, I have this window that I printed twice and cut it out. I did not back it with anything because I knew I was gluing this right on top of the images and it would have been much harder to cut out all these little window panes. And then behind that I have images from a Collage Sheet of, you know, different little creepy ghouls, apothecary ghouls doing work in the background there. And then if I turn it to the back, you can see that I've covered it with paper from the Tim Holtz collection, as well as this is more of the paper from the Tim Holtz collection. And then from that first set of chipboard that I showed you that had all the little different scrolls and pieces, I've used 2 of those pieces up here that are painted black and then rubbed with copper, oh, I forget what it's called.
Gilder's paste.
Gilder's paste. There you go, Gilder's paste. Thank you. Copper Gilder's paste. I rubbed it with that to give it more of a metal look, and that's pretty much what I did for all of the metal pieces like this to make them look metal. I use either gold or copper or a combination, that sort of thing. And then you see in the front here I have the skull, which I'll talk about that. We're going to do something special with that. And then in terms of the doors and windows, here's the Collage Sheet for this. And you can see we have like a bow window with the Ghoul and Sons on it and all the little bottles and everything in the back. And here is this, and I've got a thin chipboard on the back, and I've actually bowed it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend the little pieces, the little edges here, and use those to attach it so that it is actually going to bow out like that. I think that makes it more interesting. And then for the door, I'll pull this aside here a little bit. For the door, here's what that will look like. And what I'm going to do, or what I did here, I should say, is I took the door from the Old Doors Collage Sheet, and you'll notice a lot of them either have the panels already, you know, whited out, or you could cut them out. And then I just took a piece of transparency film and some of these rub-ons. They come in a set of 2. These are new Tim Holtz Halloween rub-ons. And I just cut some things out and rub them onto the transparency. That works really nice, as you can see. Just little bits and pieces. A lot of the stuff on this thing is apothecary related. And then I backed it with the same paper that I have on the back of this. So it's the door, then the transparency, and I actually put the transparency behind the door first so I knew what my edges were. So I didn't like put stuff places it wouldn't, there was, you know, was going to get covered by the door. And then you can just see I've got the paper on the back. So that's the layering, and then I've got these two connectors, these little skull Halloween connectors, kind of as door knockers or just decoration. So that's going to go on here, and then this is going to go on here. Now another option, if you wanted a smokier look, you could apply the rub-ons to some vellum, and then that would just give you more of a smoky look. But whatever you put in the background, you know, keep it really light, just like I did with the one before, the eatery, where I used the cheesecloth, so I would have more of a white background so that those rub-ons would pop. Now let's talk about the skull here. What I'm going to do is light it up. And I don't know if you can notice, but there's two holes here. And what we're going to do is I've got this little thing here that has lights. And those lights are going to go through the eyes. And I thought that would look real cool. So the first thing I did was I took this piece separately, not attached like it is now, and I put holes in the eyes. Now if you have a drill, that would be the easiest. But if you don't have a drill, I used an awl, and I first poked a hole in there. And then I got something that was larger, a screw, and then I just screwed it in that hole to make the hole bigger. Because you want to have enough room to be able to poke these little lights through there. Then I attached the skull where I wanted it on the house. Then I went back through and re-poked through so that I would have the holes back here. Now in order to have the little light gizmo in the back here, and to hide it, I'm going to use a matchbox. So it's just one of these diamond matchboxes. And what I've done is I'll show you what this is. So it's got the little battery. This is already put together for you. You don't have to assemble anything. It comes like this. And the switch. So I covered the matchbox with paper. Then I cut a hole in the side of the matchbox to accommodate the switch, and I glued that in place. And that's the only thing I'm going to glue in place in this box. And the reason being, you need to be able to get into this and change the battery. And this box is going to be glued against this. So you need the room of all of this not attached down so that you can pull this out of the box and change it and put it back in. So once you get that done, then I've stuck this in here just so you can see what that looks like. Then I took the lid of the box, which I papered because that's the part you're really going to see, and I placed it where I wanted it, here, held that, turned it over, and I poked the holes all the way through again, so that now I have the holes in my box. So next thing I'm going to do, you already saw I had done that, I'm going to thread these through those little holes and have them come out the other side. Let's see if I can get one done again. And don't worry, make your holes big enough so that you can do this, because you're not going to see these holes, and it's hard to get in here and get these little boogers in there. Okay, so I'll just do one. There we go. So now the next step is to take your box back here and thread it through these little holes. Now once you get it far enough in the hole where you want it, however far that is, I don't know if you can see the light. Can you see the light in the eye? Glue this in place. Just put a little bead of glossy accents in the back and glue this in place, because you don't want to pull this back out when you go to putting your box on the back. Then you're going to come in here, let's pretend that's glued. You're going to come in here and glue your box down on top of that. Now just wrap up all this stuff inside your box, don't glue it down, and shove your box carefully into here. Except do it this way, so it's open instead of closed. And then you'll have all that loose in there, so when you need to replace the battery, you can just pull this back out. This will all be loose. These things will be glued in place in here, and you can replace your battery, wad it all back up, and stick your box back in there. And then you've got access to the switch on the side. So I think that'll be pretty cool. So for the inside, I'm going to add a cabinet. Now the collage sheet does have a cabinet, so if you don't want to work with a dimensional cabinet and you're doing maybe the book or something and you want a cabinet in there but you need something flat, you've got one here, and then you can just glue in bottles and stuff like that. But I'm actually going to use a cabinet, and it's a little dollhouse cabinet, and you can see I've been doing some work on it already. This is the color it comes in, and it comes in a very shiny finish. So if you want to paint it, you're going to have to use something like the patina paints that are made for metal, because otherwise any other paint is just going to beat up on the sealing stuff that's on it. And I thought it was fine that way. I'm going to put a lot of stuff on it, so yeah, of course you could sand it and get some of that off, and then you could add paint and things like that. But I'm going to go with something simpler. And I've started to add some trim work on it, and this trim work comes from the Graphics 45 collection that I'm using, and it's got the sheet in it. There's 3 of everything in here, and you can see there's lots of really cool borders and things to use. And so I've cut out this little border here, and I've cut out this little border here, and I've started applying those to the cabinet to kind of give it more architecture, to dress it up. You might notice too that I've also cut out another one of the borders from it and used it at the top of the inside here. And then what I'm going to do is add another one of these flourish things to the back of this to give it more architecture. And of course I'll put lots of stuff on the top, and you can see I've been adding bottles. And these bottles in the top, I used the same rub-on that I used from the door. There's just all this little tiny stuff. And so I rubbed on a bunch of that stuff on these little amber colored bottles. And then I've got some little books in here, and those books came from this collage sheet here. It has a big book on it, and then it just had a whole bunch of series of books. And so I cut those out, folded them, and I just put a little piece of foam core in them. It wasn't even the whole size. It was just the thickness of the book, because you don't see the sides of the books here. So there's no point in doing a lot of work that you're not going to see. You just need something to keep the book, the spine, the width that it is. So just a little foam core in there, whatever you want to stick in there. And then of course I've got these little green bottles down here. I used for those, and for these blue bottles here, I used this collage sheet, which is just filled with tiny little bottle labels that I thought were really cute. And of course you see more books, and the paper in the back again is from this collection here. It's from the Graphics 45 collection. I think it's these here that I put in the back. And I'm going to continue to add things to the cabinet, and these doors actually do open. And I started stuffing in, I think I'm just going to put a whole bunch of skeleton parts in there. And as you know, from pulling the skeleton parts, the legs off of a bunch of skeletons for my ghouls, I've got a lot of pieces. So I thought I would just stuff a whole bunch of pieces of those in there, and then, you know, maybe just even leave the doors open and not even have them closed. Now, in addition to this cabinet, I'm also going to have a table, and it's going to be made out of this paper mache coffin. So I think I'm going to use the lid, and then I've got these little dollhouse legs. You can see 4 of them, and they will just fit right inside the lid of this coffin, and that will make my table. And then I'll use this for something else. So those will be my 2 pieces of furniture inside the building, or inside of the chemists. And then I've got, these come in a really long strip of their metal fence, and I've cut a couple pieces, and I'll probably put those in the front. And of course I'll have trees and other things to go to decorate that. So I'll put all that together and then come back and show you the final look. Now you can see that I have finished the Ghoul and Sons, and I've got the fences attached, and you see one of the strange people characters from that collage sheet on the front, and a black cat bead, and then you see a stack of signs, and then the signs are attached to a popsicle stick. And you've seen the door already, and then on the other side you can see I've added one of the spooky trees painted black, and then I printed the spiders several times, and then I used some spider webbing, you know, the stuff that comes in a big bag that you can use to decorate your house for Halloween. And then of course at the top you can see the spooky eyes and you know, all the scroll work, and then a finial at the very top. So I'm going to put this aside for a second and talk about something. And that is the little signs. They come in a set of a bunch of them, and there's 2 of each. And the back side has a little plastic coating on it that you remove, but I didn't, because if you remove it, it becomes very transparent. And for the purposes that I'm using, I didn't want it to be transparent. I wanted it to be solid. So I left that on, painted it black so that you would not see the white edges. And I used one on each side, the same one. So you'll see that when I show you the flip side. Now in the front of the house, you saw steps. And the way you create steps, the easy way to create steps anyway, is to cut 2 pieces of chipboard. This chipboard goes from the bottom of the house to the bottom of the stairs. That's the distance. So I cut one piece like this, covered it with the paper that I used on the brick paper that I used on the house, and then cut another smaller piece, cover it with paper. So you'll glue this to the house, popping it up, then glue this to this step, popping it up, and you get, I'm going to bring this back, and you get the look of the stairs here. Okay, now let's take a look at the other side. Now we have the inside of the Ghoul & Sons Chemists. Starting over here, you can see the flip side of the tree. And you'll notice how this fence made a really nice support for the tree. So I've connected it here, and I've also connected it right inside the roof here because this roof line is popped out a little bit. So popping out those roof lines are so nice. Just tuck the tree in there. And of course you can see the back side of the spider webs. And now you can see the finished cabinet, although I'll start up here with the clock. Now I've just glued that clock right on top of the matchbox. And then I've added all these little beads on the side, these little skeleton beads, just to make it look a little spookier. And then these little things here, the hands of the clock, are chipboard that I've painted. Now if we come to the top of the cabinet, you've seen me use this owl bead before, and then I've created a little candelabra, and the way I've done it is at the bottom here, I'm going to tilt it maybe a little bit more so you can see more of the bottom. And there's a little piece of filigree there. Then there's a fat bead. You saw me use that fat bead in the boutique. Then I've got a piece of part of a toothpick, just however much you want, and cut off what you don't need. And at the top here is another piece of filigree. And then I've got 2 or 4 birthday candles glued to that, and I just lit them on fire and let them drip. And that's how I got all the dripping. And then of course I've got just a little bottle here with I used a lot of stuff to fill the bottles. I either used micro beads or I used things from my spice cabinet. And I didn't put labels on some of these just so you could see what was inside of them. And I think these are red pepper flakes. And then of course we have the little statue or little bust from the collage sheet, and that has a bead behind it, so that's how it's standing up on the top of this. And I have one of these really pretty little flasks that I put micro beads in. Now in the very top of this flask I put a little bit of glossy accents just so the micro beads couldn't come out, and more spices in this one here. And then of course you've seen a lot of what's in the cabinet here. I added some scrolls. I just rolled up from some collage sheets. I just rolled up some of the images to make scrolls. You see you've got another one of those little flasks with micro beads. And then you've already seen how I've got all the skeleton parts inside these cabinets, and I kept these 2 open. And then we've got our ghoul here. And then I've added things to the back of the wall. And of course here we've got, I'm gonna tilt it a little bit more this way because we're going to look at the top of this cabinet. You can see that I've got my not cabinet but table. You see I've got my little coffin table here, and I've used some of the foliage stuff in this little wooden bowl. This is a little wooden pot with a little bone that I stuck into it. This is one of the glasses from that glass set that you've seen me use in the tavern and also in the Retching Toad, and I filled it with some micro beads and then added some glossy accents again so the beads wouldn't come out. And then I've got some of the other bottles that I have filled with spices. I've wrapped some twine around some of the necks of the bottles, and I've got this little cat eye bead as a stopper. And then I've used this blue bead with a skull on the top of it as another bottle. And then I'm going to turn this a little bit. Hopefully you can see that I've used a little wooden foot that I've painted and then put the bottle on top. So, you know, you can use other items so that you can stack interior bottles so you can see them and make it look more interesting. And then I'll point out this piece here. Now this is a box foot. They come in a set of 4, and the idea is that you put them underneath something to prop it up. But I used it as like a wall stand that I then put another bottle with this charm, the skull charm on that. And then of course you can see over here the flip side of the popsicle stick sign of we carry all these different things, and you can see where I've used the other little sign on the back side so that it looks the same on both, and then of course the little cat bead. So that is the Ghoul & Sons Chemist. The next piece is the Thrifty Witch, and this is the house shape I'm using. I cut the chimney off. And I want to show you another option on how to use the window pieces, and that is to attach them to the sides of the houses and make a larger facade. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to attach 2 to each side, or 1 to each side. And then this is the collage sheet for the Thrifty Witch, so I'll be using a lot of those images in the piece. Now I'm going to show you the work I've already done. I'm not going to repeat a lot of the same stuff I've shown you before, but here we go. Here's the front of the house. So you can see the house shape here. I've covered that and the windows on the front with a stone image from the digital image set. And then I've covered the roofs with a roof from the digital set. And then I have glued these together, and I used E6000 so I get a really strong bond to the edges here. And then I've used a door from the door collage sheet, and this witch with the spooky background, that comes from the Spooky Windows collage sheet. And then I've added, you can see the number 7 from the collage sheet and the sign. And then I have 2 lanterns that are on these the scroll work, and that's this piece and that's all more of that scroll work that I showed you at the very beginning that I said, you know, could be used in lots of different ways and cut up. And then from the Windows collage sheet, this window with all the stuff in the background is on the spooky one, but the blank one is on the regular collage sheet and the Windows collage sheet. And I just printed it and cut it out, and then that way you can see into the shop. And then on the sides here, I have fencing. It's just plastic fencing. And I just cut it. It doesn't really cut evenly in half, so I've got a little bit more on this side than this side, but basically I cut it and then glued it to the front. Now, also I want to mention with this window, I did the same thing with this window that I did with the Ghoul & Sons, where I just bent it a little bit so it'd be bowed, and then just attached it right at those little pieces here. At the very top is a witch with a finial. Now those are in the digital set. So just like all the other collage sheets, this has a digital set, and I can always put more images in a digital set than I can on a collage sheet. So those pieces are there. So now I'm going to flip this over and show you the other side. Now inside, I'm using a lot of the stuff from the Graphics 45 set. And in this is sheets that look like this. There's 3 of them. And I've been cutting out some of the architectural details and using them. You can see I've used the rare oddities here. And then I've used some of the architectural detail down here. And then there's another sheet that's got lots of borders. I've been using that before, and I'll show you where I use that again. And then you can see I've used their paper, the green version of the paper, to cover this and to cover this. And then for the windows, I have used these little decorative cupcake holders, you know, that normally go like this, but they're Halloween. And I have cut them up and used them for behind each of the windows. There's 2 different ones. You can see this one's got really a lot of nice detail. And then I glue them to the back here. And then to cover this up, because it's kind of an odd shape, even when you cut it up, then I use these architectural pieces from the Graphic 45 paper. Then to give more support to this connection between the windows and the house, I've added some more of the architectural stuff to make that even more secure. And then of course I've used one of the signs. Now in addition to what you see there, I've started working on the pieces that are going to go inside. And I have used the cabinet from the Ghoul & Sons collage sheet. Now I didn't use it in the Ghoul & Sons because, as you saw, I used an actual cabinet. So I thought I could use this paper one for here. And I've also taken a lot of the bottles from the Ghoul & Sons, the paper bottles, and glued them in here. Some are backed with chipboard, which is what's making them look like they have a little bit more depth. And some I just cut out of the paper and glued them in place. And then, of course, the bowl from the collage sheet, the witch's collage sheet, as well as the potion label. One of the other things that I'm going to put inside is going to be this little thing that's going to sit in front of this window here. And basically it goes with the flying broom sails, and I've just used a candle holder and painted it. And then I've used some of the borders that are in that Graphics 45 package of paper to put some the borders around that. So that's going to sit right here in front of this window. Now, a couple other things I want to show you are, I'll go back to the front. On the collage sheet, I've got this street light with the moon as the light, and of course I'll attach that to this here in the front. And another thing that I've made in the in this paper set, there's a sheet of a whole bunch of, I don't know if I've pulled it out of here. I guess I have. I don't have it with me. But there's a sheet that has a whole bunch of things like this, signs like this. And so I've taken it, and since there's 3 of everything in there, there's plenty to make whatever you want. I took 2 of them, cut them out, and put them on chipboard. And then I took a piece of chipboard in the middle there and used that to connect the 2 to make a sandwich board that will sit out in front of the Thrifty Witch store. I didn't show you this with the Retching Toad Eatery, but I did the same thing with the Today's Special sign. I printed it twice. I put a piece of chipboard in here, and you could use cardstock, whatever you want. You just need something in there to connect the 2. And one of the spooky pumpkins, and that I used as another sandwich board in front of the eatery. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you before I start putting this together and finishing it up is a cauldron, which just comes in a little kit. And you have a centerpiece here that these poke into, the legs go into, and you put all 3 legs in there, and then this little piece, you're going to want to put it through here, and then it's got a little knob at the end, and that way it'll hang down, so you'll have your feet in here, and then your handle will go on your cauldron. And then that will hang from here. And then the feet make a tripod. And I would put a little glue up here just to keep these in place, the legs in place. So I'll be putting that together and doing something with that. So I'm going to do a little bit more work on this and come back and show you some more. Now we have the finished Thrifty Witch. And over here you can see I've attached the fence, I've attached the moon, and then I used the palmistry sign there. And then now you can see through the windows, and you can see the brooms in the candle holder. And then I've added a fat pumpkin here and a raven. And I finished up, I think this is pretty much what you saw before. I added some things to the door. And of course I added some owls. You see an owl here, they're on both sides. And then again, you can see through this window, you can see the little pumpkin pods in there, and you can see a moon man in the back. And then here we have another one of the moon men dancing with a witch's hat. He's all happy he got a great deal on a broom. And so now I'm going to turn it over and show you the other side. Now we have the inside of the Thrifty Witch. You can see that I've added some more decoration on the inside of the windows. I've got a little bit from the paper pad, and then I've got a little felt pumpkin up there that comes in a set of several pumpkins. And here you can see I've done the clock, used the clock from the collage sheet. And here's a little table that I painted. It's white normally, it's a little dollhouse table. And I painted it a dark brown, and then you can see I have some things under here, the cards, and then some of the foliage stuff that I've been using to decorate the trees. I put that in a little basket because some baskets come with this table. And then you can see one of our moon men, and he's got a little frog. Up here are the little pods. These are seed pods, and they just happen to look like pumpkins. And then I've got 2 marbles that I've put up on bead caps to look like crystal balls. Then I have this a little bottle with some rondelles on the top and the bottom and a cat eye bead. And then this right here is, I'll turn it a little bit this way. This thing on the top is a cameo, but it is a Ouija board cameo. And then I've got a couple of more images up there from the collage sheet. Now if you move here, you can see that I have finished the cabinet. It's got all the same stuff as it had before, but I've added the cat, and then of course a couple more of the little frogs that come in. They come in a sheet. I think there's maybe 6 or 8, and there's 2 of each. And then if we move over here, you can see that I have attached the candle thing with all the brooms in to this side, and then you can see over here, you can see the flip side of the moon and the palmistry. Now I'm going to move this out and show you a little bit more detail stuff. The one nice thing with this project is you can have lots of standalone items. You already saw the little marquees that I will have out front, and you can see this all put together in the photographs. Then I have this other little cute piece. I took one of the baskets and I put it on a little candle, or this is like a little wooden chess piece, and I just painted it black, and then I used some of the little green foliage stuff, and then these little cute beads. They all have different expressions, and a little sign says free pumpkin pets with purchase. And that's a little cute thing that can sit outside the store or inside the store, whatever you like. And then here I want to show you my finished witch's brew. I've used some more of the little sticker things that I used on the Ghoul and Sons, and like I said, they're doubles. So I treated them the same way. I painted them black on the back so you wouldn't see any white, and then glued the 2 together. And then I wanted to show you the inside of my little pot. Now what I did was I filled it about 2/3 full of glossy accents, let that dry. Then I put more glossy accents in there, and then I put the little beads, the little eye beads inside there so that they would be floating in the top of this. And then just add a little honeycomb alcohol inks just to make it look a little bit more gooey and slimy. So that is the witch's brew. And of course this would hang here. And again, this is one of those cute little things that you could put on the inside of the store or on the outside of the store. So that's the Thrifty Witch. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial and that I've given you lots of ideas. If you are not already on my blog watching this video, hop over there for all the details of the event, which include giveaways, how you can participate in the event, and free images, plus information on parts 2 and 3. You'll also find detailed pictures of pieces and supply lists of all the Alpha Stamps products I used. Alpha Stamps is also where you'll find my collage sheets, digital sets, and the chipboard houses and windows. Stay tuned for part 2 on September 19th.